Welcome back to the Potter Discussion. This is episode 81. I'm your host, Oscar, and on today's episode, we will be talking about scenes that were left out of the movies, but were still in the books. Let's do this. Okay, so scenes left out of the movies is kind of an interesting topic because there were so many, but so little at the same time. And that's because the story can continue on without certain scenes, but there are some that are vital. And the movies, that's why making a movie is so hard, because you have to keep that balance of scenes that you need and scenes that you don't. And that is the challenge of movie making, keeping scenes and not. So with Harry Potter, it's a slightly different situation. And that's because there's so much backstory in especially the first book, but also in the other ones, that the filmmakers had to make a big decision. And that decision was keep all that extra scene they just had or not use it and have the story continue in a way that didn't include it. And that's a really difficult decision to make, and it's one that they had to, but I think they found a pretty good middle ground, and I really like the way the movies turned out in the end. So the way they did it, I think I'm really, really happy with. I hope you are too. And it's a good story, and I'm glad they kept the actual story, but there were some vital scenes that were left out, and I just can't fathom why. And of course, maybe money, their budget might not have been big enough. Maybe the characters, just weren't up for it. Maybe they had to drop some actors, let them go. But I think there are a couple of really major reasons that inhibit the production of certain things in movies. And that's things that you literally, physically can't do. Like things in, for example, Hagrid. Of course, there's no one who looks like Hagrid, that tall, that big. So they had to work around that and give the actor a big, a large coat and a big wig and a huge beard. But they couldn't film him next to Harry because that would make the proportions way too obvious. And the way Hagrid is described, it is much more than just a man to a boy. It is like a tree to a sapling. So having Hagrid be that big, I think, is another really big challenge they had to face, and that's a good example because it is in Harry Potter. It's a magical thing that they just couldn't reproduce, so they had to pick scenes carefully and not film Hagrid's entire body unless they had some special effects or ways to make Harry look small. Maybe Harry wouldn't actually be walking next to Hagrid, but 4 or 5 feet behind him and still looking like he was talking to Hagrid. So things like that is really difficult for the filmmakers to work around, and that's why they struggled so much in picking the right scenes. But let's just do this. So let's start with book 1. I think that's a fitting place, and although I did mention Hagrid, I think that's more understandable. But one of the most disappointing scenes that I was looking forward to was the scene where Harry and Draco were talking in Madame Malkin's robe shop. And it might seem like a scene that isn't that important, it's Draco Malfoy, it's just for the purpose of meeting him. But I feel like that's a really important part of Draco's character development, in that he was made out to be the immediate enemy of Harry and a very, very Slytherin. Just very Slytherin. And I think the books did that justice. It was really, really interesting the way the books portrayed Malfoy in that one scene, and that's really how we meet Malfoy. And the films just decided, no, let's not do that. And they did keep the scene where it was the second, almost formal meeting, where Malfoy actually knew who Harry really was. And some might say that is the real meeting, where Harry, refused the hand, and Draco goes, "Oh no, I'm gonna find you, and my father's gonna do something." Those scenes are so funny because whenever I hear that, I just know that Draco's father will never do something. He will never. Draco just thinks that because his father has a lot of money and a big house. So, I don't know. It's strange to see how Draco interacts, but this scene in Madame Malkin's really sets that tone, and without it, I think the movie is really lacking something in that we don't see Draco being the person he is in the books. He's really different in the movie, and I hate to say it, but he is. And the character is still wonderful. I really like the way Tom Felton portrayed Malfoy in the movie, but it still isn't the same, and book Malfoy is a little different from movie Malfoy. They do get a little more similar in the later books, but movies rather. But it is still a large gap that I feel like should be filled in that movie. Moving right along to the next scene. I think the next scene I shouldn't say scene. I think the next collection of scenes that were completely disregarded that I think could have made a wonderful addition to the movies. Diagon Alley. Diagon Alley in Hogwarts. I still wish they just remade the movie and used a ton of special effects to make the actors look the same, and just include more Diagon Alley in Hogwarts, because in the books, that was our first taste of magic. We saw the Owlery, Gringotts, Ollivanders, the robe shop, the potion store even, and I just can't get around how little we saw of Diagon Alley especially, and also Hogwarts, classes, first experiences, the ghosts, the professors, all these little hidden passageways. I mean, I know that the movies couldn't afford a lot of that kind of thing, and that is a bummer, a huge bummer. You should just make a fundraiser, raise $1 billion so they can do it again. But the Hogwarts aspect of the entire experience was different, very different, and I think it is more different than what we would expect. So we did get a couple classes, and we got the classic, I can teach you how to bottle fame and brew glory, even but a stopper of death. And that is the one thing I'm not complaining about when Snape said that in the classroom. But I think the most disappointing part is how we didn't have that first experience with magic. And our first experiences were, Ollivander and Gringotts, and that's it, but not spells, not, things moving, levitating, exploding, flower vases and wand boxes flying off the walls, maybe, but other than that, we didn't really get much, and I am very disappointed. I think this could have made the movie so much better, because we as the watcher or reader really want that first experience, and that is really what introduces us to the entire franchise. We don't know what this kind of magic is, and we want to know what it is. That sentence didn't finish itself. But I am so disappointed still. To this day, whenever I turn on the first movie, I just think to myself, why did I not include that? Why did I include that? And they're in the deleted scenes. I think there's so much more stuff in the deleted scenes, and they could have just pressed release. I don't know if it's like a button, but and gave us those scenes, and I would have been so happy. Just think about it, for someone to stumble across the movie without ever having heard of Harry Potter before, you would want them to know magic. You wouldn't want them to go, oh wow, I guess magic is exploding things and small people with masks on. No, it's not. It's not at all. And it's the waving of the wand. The goblins, they aren't just short, they're goblins. And stuff like that. It's just so disappointed that they couldn't realize that it is more than just a cool flurry of sparks. It's not just an explosion. It's what magic is in Harry Potter. It's what we see the world to be, how interactions are made. And if we don't have that, I don't know what we're gonna do. I don't know how we made it past that first movie without that experience in magic, without the first few spells, without the first few this, without the first few that. And I think we did it because of the book. And the book was the only reason we managed to not be shocked or surprised about when the first movie came out and everyone sat down to watch it and there's no magic. But we thought, it's just a story. They couldn't do that. And that's the only reason. We didn't know that there were scenes missing. We didn't know that they had to cut things. And if we didn't know that, that would have been a problem. But we had the books, so we're fine. So that's that. But I think this is more of one long scene that I think is more common, and if you want to, you can say it with me. It might be a little harder to guess what I'm about to say, but it's at the very end, and they say it in the books, but not in the movie. Alright, I mean, it's not one scene, it's the whole collection, if you know what I mean. So let's just say it on 3. 1, 2, 3, the Sorcerer's Stone. That's all I have. A sigh. Okay. The easiest, if not the easiest scene to make in the entire collection of scenes. One little troll head to make. Put on the ground. Boom. Film them, walking by, saying, "Oh, what's that smell? Troll. Quirrell got it. Great. Move on." Next scene, put dye in water in fancy bottles. Then give them lines and press record. Boom, scene, done. And then the movies are 1,000% better. But no, I guess their budget, they just couldn't fit in more water. That food coloring now, the prices are going up, I guess. Another sigh. But I just can't believe that they cut those scenes. Oh my gosh, I was so disappointed. I read the book and then I thought, why did they not put in those scenes? And even to this day, after maybe watching movies a dozen times each, I'm still unbelievably disappointed that we didn't have those scenes. And I am sure that somewhere in the archives there are those scenes. If they could just release those, I would pay $10 for one of those scenes. I would pay my entire bank account. Because those scenes were so good, but we didn't get them. And I don't know why. Maybe some production issues, maybe some, I don't know, they just couldn't finish their prosthetics. The water was, stale, because that happens. But that was just something that I couldn't quite wrap my head around. Why did they cut those scenes? They were so easy. And I mean, genuinely, all jokes aside, these were literally the easiest scenes to film. You don't even need, it's maybe 2 actors, per these scenes, and 1 or 2 props, maybe a table, some bottles, and a troll head. I don't know, and I say, troll head casually, but I know that is probably one of the hardest things to make, a realistic prosthetic, but even if they could have just shown a big red bump, and I would have been happy if they even acknowledged that existed. But there were so many things that were not in those, passageways, so many good lines, so many good interactions in the books that weren't included in the movies. I was so disappointed. So disappointed. But hopefully, we can recover with these next books. So, in the second book, it's a little bit of a different situation. I feel like they encompassed the Chamber of Secrets in a suitable way. And there might have been some lines cut here and there just for time, but other than that, the journey of the Chamber of Secrets was intact. And honestly, I was surprised while I was doing my research, flipping through the books. I was a little surprised to find that everything in the movies was pretty much in the books too. Or the other way around. And I don't know. It seems a little like they leaned on that too heavily. And I know it's the Chamber of Secrets, literally the title of the book, so they have to do something special, but they don't. That's the thing. I'm disappointed because they could have done something so much better. They only had a couple of hours to do what they wanted, and the book is so much longer than that, so they decided to keep all the Chamber of Secrets, which is a great decision. I'm so happy they did that, but I don't know. The scenes before that had to be cut, and cut down hard. And this first is more of just an annoyance than a big disappointment, and that's the Death Day party. The Death Day party was so cool in the books, and literally cold, but also the ghosts flying around, the rotten food, the wonderful band, who I think I'm going to hire to my next birthday party, and all those just fun details. I was so sad when I watched the movie and it ended and I thought, where's the death day party? Where is it? Where did it go? So that was a really big disappointment on my part. Sorry, on their part. Not my part. I would have kept that in. I mean, come on, like a minute. That's the other thing I don't understand. It takes such a little minuscule bit of time to do whatever, but they just decide, no, I don't really want that. I mean, that was a weird side, but yes, that is how I'm feeling at this moment. The cutting of the scenes was a very difficult part of the movie making, and for us to see the scenes not there, it was tough. And another one of those scenes was Hagrid being taken to Azkaban. It seems like they were doing us a favor. Hagrid's a nice guy. We don't want to see him go to Azkaban, but that's an important part of the story. Really important part. And that's how Harry and Ron went to the, place. Why can't I think of it? The Forbidden Forest to meet Aragog. And I know they still conveyed that message through Hagrid, just not in the same way as he was being taken out the door to Azkaban. And I know it's not a vital part of the story, but so many things happen in that little scene. Well, of course, Hagrid being taken away, Dumbledore being revealed that he can see the invisibility cloak and he knows that they are there, and Lucius seems to be in there a lot, and I think that's an important part of the story to keep in mind, that Lucius is a big part of why the Chamber of Secrets started, and he is the reason why it was opened that year. So including Lucius in this, I think, is a really important part of the story as well. And another addition to this is Fudge. Fudge, we almost never saw Fudge in the second movie. Why? I mean, he is the Minister of Magic, and he was saying, well, drastic measures have to be taken. We either close the school or we don't. What do we do? And Fudge was really getting nervous, like mega nervous, because he would have to resign if he made the wrong choice. And he kind of didn't make a choice at all, especially in the movie, because we didn't see him. He didn't even have an opportunity to make an appearance in the second movie. I think he said maybe a couple lines, maybe. I don't know. And then what? Nothing? No decision? And I haven't watched the second movie in a while, so I might be getting that wrong, but I don't think he said anything. I don't think he said anything at all. We might not even have met Fudge in the second movie, but it's weird. It's strange that they didn't include that kind of thing in the movie. But let's just go. I can't focus on this anymore. The Death Day party, come on. Another exciting scene gone in the third book now was the firebolt. That ending will haunt me forever. Harry just, it just freezes on that one frame, zooms in, the circle comes down, and boom, the movie's over. Oh, man. I cringe to that every single day. The way he got on it, and he was like, whoa, it's so fast. Then was frozen, and, the whole thing happens, the movie ends, and oh my gosh, I really did not like that scene. I did not like that scene at all. And if he had just gotten the firebolt in the middle of the season, I would have loved it. Then he would have been able to go with a firebolt forever. Yeah, firebolt. Quidditch, come on. We had to wait forever, to the fourth book, to see his firebolt even in action, more than just what he did in the third one. I don't even think there was Quidditch. Yeah, there wasn't Quidditch, it was canceled because Sirius Black in the third book, so he'd have just taken it out for a spin, not even having to wait for the regulations because the Quidditch season wasn't on. Come on. That scene, I wished with all my heart that Harry could have gotten his firebolt and taken it out and actually did Quidditch, actually played. I would have loved that, and every single person I can guarantee you would have loved that too. And even the removal of that end scene would have been better than none at all, because it would just been a storyline that they couldn't continue. They couldn't hold with the whole Sirius Black and Dementors and stuff. So I would have loved for more Firebolt, but of course I can't have everything. I would still love it. I mean, I don't know if they would love to do something. Hello, Warner Bros. Anyone? I don't know. We'll see. I might not be able to do it just yet, but we'll see. There's also the issue of the Dementors, and I feel like the Dementors weren't exactly done justice. The only thing I approve of is that first Dementor interaction. I think the way, especially Rupert Grint, the way he was scared. He was scared of what was coming on the train, and the way, everything stopped, the lights, went off. And the best part of that scene before the Dementor came was the water bottle. I think that was really interesting, the way it froze. And that really, because of course we aren't there, we can't feel the cold. So seeing the window freeze up, their breath come out in fog, and especially the water bottle freeze solid, that's just really amazing. And it makes you feel it. It makes you feel the cold. But then the Dementor came on the train. And that was a scene that was good. That was real good. And when I first watched this, I was almost scared of the Dementors. That's how good that scene was, because this big billowing black figure who was so tall and the rotting hand pushing the door open. Oh my gosh, that's like every child's nightmare. But then it stopped. Scene over. Did we see those Dementors again? I think not. We never had another scene like that, but I think we could have benefited so much. So flippin' much from just that one little scene if we just had more of that. And I know you could argue that it did happen in the Quidditch match, but it didn't. It really didn't. It was more focused on the Grim and danger around him. It wasn't the Dementors' danger, it was the Grim causing it. So that's another thing. The Grim, I feel like, was a really prominent part of the book, but it was overshadowed by the Dementors, but it was seen as if it was the Dementors. So in that Quidditch match, Harry saw the Grim, and guess who was there? The Dementors. The Grim symbolizes death. Harry thought it was the Dementors doing it. The Dementors were the death, but it was actually the Grim. The sign the Grim, not the Dementors. The Dementors were there because of the Grim. Wow, that was a logical sentence. But my point is, the Dementors really weren't portrayed as the really scary and, imposing figures they were in the books. That only scene on the train, that was it. But they could have been flying black trash bags for all I care in the Quidditch match. That's how good they turned out. That was it. But no other Dementors were ever in the book, and I just couldn't. It was that and maybe the lake scene. The lake was another one of those times where I think the movie really hit it out of the park. Those Dementors were fantastic. I think the effects, too, were very good. But the Patronus was questionable. It was like a deflated balloon, the way Harry cast it. But, the Dementors were definitely a good touch. And the way they flew down one by one, the lake freezing. But there's one that just popped into my mind. The way they flew over there, too. The swarm. And when I mean swarm, I mean swarm. You should definitely watch. I think, actually, randomly, MuggleCast just put out a commentary of the Prisoner of Azkaban. So definitely go check out that. That was really cool. So I don't know, I haven't gotten to the part where they talk about the Dementors. But personally, if I were to do a commentary, I would definitely say that those Dementors were awesome. Fantastic, with a PH, fantastic. And it was so good because it was so good. Oof, logic. But I mean the effects. The effects are really king here, and they made a good impression with the billowing of the wind, the swaying of the trees, and also just had the sheer number of Dementors. That was fantastic. But it just makes it all the more disappointing that there weren't more scenes like that throughout the story. And I would have loved there to be, but there wasn't. So that was another disappointment, and I wish it was there. And the third scene that was not in the movie was Hogsmeade. Yes, Harry did go to Hogsmeade. Yes, he threw a snowball. Yes, that whole thing happened, but it didn't. Goyle didn't trip and reveal Harry's face. Harry didn't use the mud. He didn't do all that kind of thing. He didn't get in trouble and talk to Snape. Lupin didn't find him with the map. And I know they wanted to keep those. They wanted to keep some of the vital parts that came out of that whole interaction. But I don't think they kept it good enough. The way they kind of just, the way they were sewn in there, those scenes, it felt unnatural. The way Lupin just happened to know that it was a map. He just happened to find Harry, and Snape just happened to be there. The portrait just happened to be there, and Peter Pettigrew just happened to be there. I don't know, a little too coincidental for my liking, but it was still a good scene. It was still good. You know, the snowballs getting dragged towards the Shrieking Shack, and the concept was good, just the execution, not at all. Not in the slightest, which is another disappointing factor of The Prisoner of Azkaban. But all in all, love the movie, love the book more, of course. The scenes could have definitely improved the movie, but I don't know. Now on to the Goblet of Fire, or should I say, the Quidditch World Cup less Harry Potter. And with that beautiful chord, we are into the fourth book. And as I so subtly alluded to, I think most people will know what scene I would have liked to see in the fourth book. That is... you thought I was going to say it. Now I'm going to say it. The Quidditch World Cup. I could pull my hair out, and I could eat my kettle. Oh my gosh. The Quidditch World Cup. Okay, they were either unbelievably short on money, or they are toying with us. The Quidditch World Cup, Fudge took his wand. He said, "Start." He released the snitch. The snitch goes into the camera. We expect the light to overcome, and then we're on top of it, and the game starts. But no, we get transported into the tent, only to find that the game was over. It's over. We didn't get to see a single second of the Quidditch World Cup. I could scream. I'm not, though, so, yeah. But, okay. On a more serious note, why? The Quidditch World Cup was awesome. And the scenes with the Death Eaters, the scenes with the Death Eaters, I think could have been made so much better with that air of, Ireland just won, we're having a good time, all that kind of thing. So if the Death Eaters came after the whole thing with the Triwizard Cup, I think, I always say Triwizard Cup, with the Quidditch World Cup, I think that scene would have been much more powerful for the air of happiness and comfort, even, to be completely destroyed in maybe 4 seconds. But although they do try to do something similar, it isn't nearly as good. The way they say, the Irish are partying too much. I just don't see it. Just don't understand. So, yeah, that was weird. And another strange thing that I thought I could have really liked to see was the backstory of Barty and his wife, Barty Sr. and his wife and son's, eluded death. It's a strange scene. I'll give you that. It's a strange thing that I think could have been included, but that backstory was really good. Really good in the book. The way it was described, I think, too, I forget if it was Hagrid or Mad-Eye Moody, but someone of those, it was just so good. It was so good. Oh, it was Barty Jr., when Dumbledore gave him the Veritaserum. So, yeah, the way it was described in the book, I think was so good. And the backstory of how the year came to be, why Junior decided to go into the castle, why Voldemort's back, the graveyard, Harry, the sacrifice, Wormtail, Cedric, his father, his mother, Karkaroff, Azkaban, and the Ministry. That's all the things I can remember from that scene. But the way it was made, the descriptions, the story, the development, and the backstory, I think that's the biggest part. The backstory of how it came to be was the driving force. That's why it was so good, because we got an inside look on how the entire year was fabricated, how it was made, and that's something that I think they should have kept 1,000,000%. The fifth movie was a little bit of a situation, and I think one of the most major parts was Grimmauld Place. Okay, so I'm going to try to get through this. So Grimmauld Place was made out to be the hideout of the Order of the Phoenix, the base. Sirius, where the murderer on the run, Sirius Black, was made out to be. We get there, and then we leave there. Wow, great job, guys. So, Grimmauld Place, it's a little bit of a situation. So, in the books, there is a long stay at Grimmauld Place. If you can recall, it's like 2 to 3 chapters of Grimmauld Place. How they're, de-doxying the curtains, and, dealing with, businesses that are being run out of the Order of the Phoenix. Mundungus Fletcher. Snape, Dumbledore, Ron and Hermione, all these different factors, they just aren't there. They just aren't there. We get to Grimmauld Place, and then we leave. And there is no in-between, there is no staying, there is no nothing, just leaving. And that is it. Which is really disappointing, too, because I would have liked... I should say liked and loved at the same time. I said liked. But I would have loved to see some more Grimmauld Place in the movie. It just wasn't there. Another important part was Percy. Percy didn't really make an appearance. The only time Percy was ever in the movie was when he was bringing up Harry and Cho to the headmaster's office when they were caught from the Order of the Phoenix. And he looked really mad. He was like, yeah, Harry, you did something wrong. Let's fix it. Not in Harry's favor, in Fudge's, in the Ministry's. But that was because he was being shunned by his family. He had a big argument with Arthur, and they just never recovered. So Harry and Percy seemed to have a strange relationship. They were kind of nice to each other, but then, not. And then Percy just kind of disappeared. And the shunning of Percy by the Weasleys and Harry was a big part of the story. We saw him taking notes and, holding Harry and Cho by their arms. That was it. That was that. And I would have loved to see some more of those little interactions because it really builds character. We see the relationships, the power of them, the strength, the kind even. So not having the Percy being shunned was kind of a disappointment, and I'm not exactly happy that it wasn't in the movie. So, with the sixth book, it's another situation. I have only two, big. I have two pretty major problems with the sixth book movie. And those two are beginning and the end. The very beginning, the book included the Prime Minister of England and Fudge. Fudge and the Prime Minister were talking, and they made some pretty major decisions. But not in the movie. They did replace it with the Death Eaters destroying the bridge and stuff. But it's a suitable thing, I guess. I'll accept that. But I would have liked to see that interaction between the Minister and the Minister, because they have that kind of it's interesting to see the Prime Minister being in the loop and how little that does. It just goes to show how big of an impact Voldemort has. And I would have liked to see that in there just to reiterate the point of Voldemort is really powerful. So, yeah, that's my only problem with that one. But, yeah, there's another one. And that other one is big. So, in the book, Harry is frozen by Dumbledore when Dumbledore is about to be killed. And that's because Harry can't interfere with the plan. But in the movie, Harry is shown under the astronomy tower, and Snape says, "Don't say anything. Don't say anything." Goes up, kills Dumbledore, and Harry doesn't say anything. I think that is so out of character for Harry, stubborn Harry, to not say anything when his least favorite teacher tells him to do something. I mean, I don't know. Harry pretty much knows that Snape is a half Death Eater, working for Dumbledore, but still a Death Eater. And Harry knows that Snape is going to do something bad if he goes up there. And although he knows it is bad on the outside, it's good on the in. And of course, Harry doesn't know that, but it gets a little intense. But Harry does nothing. Harry stays there. And although he's like, "Oh my gosh, no, Dumbledore," does he move? Nope, doesn't move. Even though he's not frozen. And it's not the actual, freezing, but it's Dumbledore doing it. Dumbledore saying, "Harry, we can't do this." But it was Snape who did that. And the change, I don't know. I know Snape is a great character, and the fact that he did that, good job. He's moving up in the world. But for Dumbledore to do that, it would have made it a lot better. And I am disappointed that they did not make it so. So, the seventh movie. The seventh movie was good. Well, I should say the seventh movies. The seventh movies were pretty good. And I say that because I think they included the scenes that needed to be included and didn't include the scenes that I think are okay to not include. And there are things like extra lines, extra scenes, extra just little things that I don't think they really needed. And that makes more sense. Like, for example, in Diagon Alley, when Hermione becomes Bellatrix and they meet the Death Eater in the book, they cast the Imperious Curse on the Death Eater and not the goblins. Why? I don't know. I don't know why. But they did it to the goblins in the seventh movie. And I think that makes more sense. So I am glad they did that. But it was a little bit of an issue. And I'll say that because the changing of these kind of things starts a little bit of a chain reaction. And that is a good segue into my single, not double, not triple, single problem with the seventh movies. And that occurs in the final stages. So, Harry is trying to find Voldemort. He doesn't know where he is, so he decides, you know what, I think I'm going to use our connection to discover where he is. So, movie Harry sits down and closes his eyes and does his dramatic, and then he miraculously finds Voldemort. And by the way, water in the Shrieking Shack off of the castle. There's boats. There's just stuff. Oh my gosh. That's something I just don't understand. I'm not even going to try to understand. But that happened. But in the book, Harry went out and looked for Voldemort with his own 2 feet. Good job. Found him. Was hiding in that hole under the Whomping Willow by the Shrieking Shack. And he heard Voldemort that way. And it made no sense. It made absolutely no sense that they would change that little thing that would make the 7th book so much better. And it's random, I know, but I would have liked Harry to have gone out and actually heard Voldemort with his own 2 ears talking to Snape, and then have Voldemort leave while Snape is dying, and then Harry rush out in the Shrieking Shack. So I think it's symbolic almost for Snape's life to be saved by James in the Shrieking Shack and then lost with Harry in the Shrieking Shack. So I would have liked that to be the case. And I know it was technically the Shrieking Shack in the 7th movie, but I think we can agree, no, that was another Shrieking Shack. So, yeah. But that just wraps it up, actually. This is a great episode. I love these kind of things. If you have any questions, comments, or episode ideas that you would like to hear on the podcast, definitely send me an email. My email is ThePotterDiscussion@gmail.com. That is ThePotterDiscussion@gmail.com. Don't forget to rate this podcast on your podcast app of choice. Just scroll down, tap those 5 stars, or even leave a written review, because that could help me out more than you could ever know, and it helps other listeners find this show. Also, make sure to subscribe to never miss another episode. And yeah, as always, use this information to your advantage, and I will see you later.